Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and we are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning, and we have an exciting show in store for you today. We'll be talking with Steuben County Sheriff Jim Allard. He'll be joining us in the 7 o'clock hour. We have a lot to get to, the debate coming up. We have some polling number if we get to it, some just campaign issues in general. First, a comment from a viewer after yesterday's show. I was wondering if maybe one day you could discuss the topic of the elections and voting. Maybe talk to some political figures and see what they have to say about changing how we vote so we don't have to worry about cheating being done in the presidential election. I, for one, believe that Democrats are going to try to pull something again, and that it has something to do with trying to get these illegal immigrants to vote in the elections. Also, it's been said how artificial intelligence is a threat to our elections. I would think it would be an interesting topic, and to see that people see what people have to say and what they believe would be a way to keep our elections more secure. If you decide to have a show on this topic, please make sure you announce it so I'm sure to watch. Thank you. Well, thank you for that nice comment. There's actually something in the works. We actually just started talking about that, so I will keep you updated, maybe having even a special broadcast before we head into the election, getting ready for election season, which typically the old saying goes starts after Labor Day. I think, as you see now with the early presidential debate, that is no longer the case, but I will keep you updated. And even if we don't make a special broadcast out of it, I'll make sure to have, especially as we near the election, have as many guests on as possible to, for lack of a better term, ease your worries. Okay, here's something to start with. The average American feels at least 10 years older than they actually are. Okay. How old do you feel? A new study has found Americans over 45 feel 12 years older than their actual age on average. I don't know. Well, they say it's because of joint pain. That's coming from the Sun. I don't know why I found that interesting, and I don't know why I started the program with that. Yesterday we were talking, we were talking so much about immigration. I kind of want to start off with that. But we do have a lot of questions. I know one of the issues that people like to discuss is the VP race, and I'd love to hear your take on that, your opinion on that. Speaking of which, here's a comment from a viewer. Trump's vice presidential pick is going to have to be almost as strong as him in order to stand up to Biden's minions. I'm guessing they're going to continue their campaign against Trump. It is interesting. There's a piece out, and again, it's anonymous sources. But the idea is that there's people behind the scenes that are not happy with Joe's campaign right now, because his campaign is anti-Trump, not what he wants to do for voters. And voters have real concerns. I have article after article this morning about inflation is killing people. It is just decimating savings accounts. We have obviously immigration, which we are going to talk about right off the jump here. Immigration is worrying voters. And instead of focusing on that and Biden telling you what supposedly he would do to ease voters' minds, what he is doing is running that Trump is a threat to democracy, that January 6th, as a matter of fact, they admit in the piece that January 6th will be the main focus, and it'll be nearly nonstop before November. I don't think that comes as a surprise. I know one of the new things that they're pushing, and we'll get to this as well, is this cheap fake idea. They want to convince you, and I think this term is really overused, but the idea is the Biden administration is going to gaslight you into believing every video you see of him Biden faltering, whether it's being confused, whether it's kind of rambling. That's just, never mind your eyes. It's never mind what you see with your eyes. Nope, that's a cheap fake. They're over-exaggerating it. They are taking out of context as to try to convince you that, okay, maybe it's not as bad as I'm seeing. Just like, maybe inflation isn't as bad if you believe in Bidenomics and believe what the Biden administration is telling you. Maybe the economy is good as you look at your grocery receipt. So we will be talking about that. Keep those comments coming in. We had a great show yesterday, didn't we? In the sense that we had back and forth conversations the whole time. That's why you'll see very often I'm looking down at my computer screen to try to get everything in order so we can read those coming in from out of break. So, if you are concerned about immigration, like poll after poll shows us that you are, that voters' number one concern is the open, porous border for numerous reasons. Public safety issues, terrorism, which unfortunately has become a very hot topic here with the kind of 9/10 mindset, the September 10th mindset by many people, and the real serious threats. As a matter of fact, there's a letter sent to Mayorkas demanding to know why those immigrants were released that had ISIS ties. We'll perhaps talk about that as well. But if you are concerned, worry no longer, because California Senator Alex Padilla was on CNN this morning arguing that polls showing people support Trump over Biden on immigration policy is, quote, misleading because immigration is so complex. Yes, never mind what you're experiencing. It's such a complex issue. Manu Raju, the host of CNN This Morning, and I apologize if I get the name wrong. I don't believe I've ever watched CNN This Morning, asked the question, the way voters see Trump versus Biden right now about handling the issue of immigration. 52% Trump support Trump, believe he's doing a better job, versus 41% for Biden right now. What a weird way of wording that. Trump believe he's doing a better job. Wouldn't it be he did do a better job or would do a better job? Anyway, maybe that's why it's confusing. Because the host can't ask the question properly. This is pretty much consistent with other national polls. How much of a political risk is this taking this action at this time for the president? That means the policy released earlier this week showing, making it so spouses have that, you know the whole deal. We're going to talk about the numbers here in just a minute of what that means. So as CNN put it yesterday, cracking down 1 week, a week later, empathy. So again, Senator Alex Padilla says, I honestly don't think it's a risky move. There's that old adage, the best politics is good governance. This is good governance. The numbers when it comes to polling on immigration, I think are also misleading because immigration is so complex. A couple weeks ago, we were talking about and debating how better to secure the border. Oh, just a couple weeks ago, is that when you started debating about securing the border? That's good to know. I know we've had 3.5 years of Biden telling us we could do nothing, that everything's fine. It started with everything's fine at the border. Then it was, there's nothing more we can do, to, oh yeah, it turns out there was something we could do, just not effectively. As we know, he could, just like former President Trump, close the border, not willing to do so. But I'll continue with what Padilla had to say. That's one element. What we talked about yesterday is not people who may or may not be coming into the United States. We're talking about a universe of people who have been in the United States. Wow, universe of people who have been in the United States at least 10 years is a criteria announced by the president. But really, on average, more than 23 years. These are our friends. These are our neighbors. These are our coworkers, and clearly members of families, along with United States citizens. Later, Padilla added that Biden is, quote, securing the border. So you're just confused. I'm sorry if it is a major issue for you. You are just confused. You're not, you don't understand this complex issue. Now, Doug Burgum, who is on the short list for the vice presidential nominee, and we can talk about that. Who would you like to see? I know that's been a common question we ask here, but I think it's kind of a fun mind game to see because, again, many of us start to speculate that maybe it's someone we're not even aware of. But Doug Burgum is who the New York Post, I'm not going to say endorsed, but put at the top of the list earlier this week, saying that it looks like to them, from what everything they're reading and hearing, it's Doug Burgum, J.D. Vance, and Marco Rubio. They had their order of preference as Burgum, Rubio, and then J.D. Vance. But Doug Burgum was on Fox News Channel's The Story. And Martha McCullum asked a number of people in the media talking about the possibility of imprisonment for people who disagree with former President Trump. People being put in camps. That the entire system of government would be under collapse because of a second Trump term. What would you say to them? And let me just take a quick pause before I tell you what Doug Burgum had to say. I know I predicted this, I want to say last week, but it might have been earlier this week, no, it was last week, that the talking point is now going to be, I'm just scared he's going to put me in a camp. I'm terrified because I criticized him. Now, so far we've heard that from such people as Rachel Maddow, from, who was it? I think that, I want to say one of the hosts of The View. There were so many people that for a 1 week period, we started hearing, I'm scared that he's going to throw me in a camp. Well, the New York Post put together a piece that proves that that is going to be a talking point. Yes, we were ahead of the curve yet again, but proves that that is going to be a talking point because it ties in with that threat to democracy, and they can then tie it in with January 6th. So as we've always said, the media gets it. No one really is for sure. The media either gets their talking points from the Democrats, so I tend to believe the Democrats often get their talking points from the media. Hey, this is the way you go after Trump. But this is what Doug Burgum had to say. He said, I think that is just ridiculous. The Democrats seem to have two strategies. One is be afraid. And the second strategy is be even more afraid. I wonder if it's, and I know I keep cutting off what he had to say. Do you think it's nerve-wracking being a potential candidate for VP, knowing that when you're doing an interview, Trump is probably watching? It's interesting. Anyway, so he continues. Under Joe Biden, we're actually living under a dictatorship today, where he's, bypassing Congress on immigration policies, bypassing Congress on protecting our border. He's bypassing Congress on a student loan forgiveness, and he's defying the Supreme Court. That's a comment we've mentioned a lot here. I mean, these are the things that authoritarians and dictators do. They don't follow our democratic process, and they just assert their own liberal view. And that's what the Biden administration is doing. So what they're really afraid of, as President Trump is ahead in the polls with all the groups in America on all the issues that matter most to most Americans, whether it's of the border, inflation, or interest rates. Yes, they're actually concerned. So that's why they come out with the fear tactics. So we'll continue talking about immigration. I don't want to run too late this morning. I'm going to tie immigration into other failed policies that the Biden administration or the Biden campaign are now concerned about and what they're doing or not doing to address them. So we are hitting the ground running with presidential talk this morning, but we could change the topic at any point. You see the number on the bottom of your screen. Let me know what you'd like to talk about. Let me know what you think about the VP pick. Let me know what you think about the news of the day. But let's take that first break. We're just getting started here on Frankly Speaking. Stay with us. And we are back. Look at that beautiful view as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. Thank you again for joining us this morning. A few comments from viewers. In this viewer's opinion, the only way to handle it, and this is in reference to the VP race, and the comment before, which was that you need someone that's tough, that can handle it. The only way to handle it is to put Vivek Ramaswamy in as VP, because they're going to stop at nothing to make sure Donald Trump never gets in the White House ever again. Vivek has his own money, and he's every bit as smart as Trump. Thank you very much. We've had just about everybody's name thrown around at this point, and I've heard others say Vivek Ramaswamy, so that's in no way, shape, or form of criticism. Another comment. As far as your comment about Trump imprisoning people that disagree with him, I think that's completely spun around. The only ones I've heard of it from have been the Biden people. Yes, I mean, if you really want to look at the weaponization of the judicial system, who are they trying to put into prison? It's another example of projection. He's going to imprison people. Wait, what were you trying to do with the 34 felony count? The lawsuit after lawsuit. But to that point, and I mentioned this, and we're not going to be able to go into all of it, and I'm getting back to immigration in just a second. But Hannah Penrek from Fox News says, Maddow, AOC, among liberal media and Democrat lawmakers who worry Trump will jail them in, quote, massive camps if he wins presidency. Rachel Maddow said, for that matter, what convinces you these massive camps he's planning are only for migrants? So, yes, I'm worried about me, but only as much as I'm worried about all of us. Again, that is a sign of the media, just so you know, that narcissism, that ego, that the Trump administration is, I'm worried about me. Brian Stetler, former CNN media correspondent, voiced similar concerns, but acknowledged that jail was an extreme part of the spectrum. No, again, the only thing that I see where someone's trying to throw a political opponent in jail is the Biden administration. Now, I'm not going to go through all their quotes because this article, you can find it at the New York Post or Fox News, is fantastic. It goes through what's been said so far. Joy Behar is one of the people. AOC. I mean, I know it sounds nuts, but I wouldn't be surprised if the guy threw me in jail. He's out of his mind. I mean, he did this whole first campaign around lock her up. This is his motto. That's AOC. Adam Schiff. The list goes on and on. So that, again, as we had predicted last week, was going to be a very constant refrain from the media, and especially the ego maniacs in the media who believe that Trump is going to lock them up, all while ignoring that the only party that is locking an opponent up is the Democrat Party, and that is their attempt to throw former President Donald Trump in jail. So moving along here, Biden's latest border order may embolden migrants to flout immigration laws and commit marriage fraud. Top immigration experts are hammering the Biden administration over its plan to establish the so-called parole-in-place qualifications for illegal immigrant spouses of U.S. citizens. A forthcoming executive order expanding the construct is expected to shield as many as 500,000 illegal immigrants from deportation. Former acting ICE Director Thomas Homan said the move will cause further damage to the United States and lead to an uptick in marriage fraud as the policy is set to focus on spouses. Quote, the administration has done nothing to secure the border. They're playing a shell game. This is just another enticement for more illegal aliens to cross the border to take advantage of a giveaway program. And that's very similar to his quote-unquote crackdown, last week or the week before, where the media said, boy, this is the toughest immigration policy in years. You mean since Biden got into office? Because Trump was tough. The border was actually secure. Now it's open, porous border. So what they released was, okay, we're cracking down, but these are the ways you can still get in. Homan, who served in the Trump administration, said he hopes to help establish a historic deportation program if the real estate mogul is elected in November. We talked about this extensively yesterday, where the polls show overwhelmingly that Americans support a deportation program, that even the Hispanic community supports a deportation program. But remember, and I can't remember the host's name, but it was a media representative, one of the more, when I say liberal outlet, you know that could be any legacy media outlet. But they said that reporting on the facts, like these murders, these rapes that are happening in New York City, specifically that we talked about yesterday, caused by illegal immigrants, by reporting that, you are fear-mongering. What you're supposed to be reporting on is the wonderful work Biden is supposedly doing to secure the border. Homan said, a record number of migrants are dead. A record number of American citizens are dead. A record number of terrorists have crossed the border. And what's your focus? Let's get another giveaway program, which is going to entice more people to come. This is nothing but a political ploy. And did you realize that nearly 80,000 DACA recipients that were admitted into the U.S. in the first 5 years of the program had arrest records? Within 5 years of a new program created to prevent deportation of minors brought into the country illegally by their parents, nearly 80,000 were released into the United States with arrest records. The majority were between the ages of, get this, 19 and 22 when they were arrested, according to the latest available data published by U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. So we're just tying in all these numbers. I know we're moving fast. But as I mentioned earlier, House Republicans are demanding answers from Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas, as well as the FBI, specifically Christopher Wray. They want details regarding the 8 migrant men linked to ISIS who were arrested in the United States after having successfully crossed the southern border. As it was reported, 8 ISIS-linked migrant men were arrested in Los Angeles, California, Philadelphia, New York City, after the FBI found that they had ISIS connections. At least one of the 8 migrants was directly released by President Joe Biden's DHS, reportedly thanks to the CBP One mobile app, which allows migrants in Mexico to schedule appointments for release into the U.S. interior at ports of entry along the border. The FBI later found that the migrant men, all from Tajikistan, had possible ties to ISIS. In a letter to Mayorkas and Ray, Representatives Mark Green, Dan Bishop, August Flugger, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, and Clay Higgins said the pattern of potential terrorists crossing the border is alarming. I think that's one of the reasons why you're seeing so many articles stating that a terrorist attack is, well, high alert, high warning. I don't want to say imminent, but that we're living in very troubling times, and that some are even equating it to, as I mentioned earlier, September 10th, where people are kind of naive to the real threat that's out there. But you can't have an open border. Because, yes, we know how many people, like in this case, were actually released in, but actually still had ISIS connections. But we also talk about the gotaways, the ones that we have no information on. How many are, and also what we brought to you yesterday is how many various countries the migrants are coming from. It's no longer just Mexico. It's from all over the world. And what are their connections? What information do we have on them? Many instances, they're being released before any real background check is being done. And that ties in with the tragic murder of Rachel Morin. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. We are going to wrap up the immigration discussion, but tied in to the Biden administration. Keep those comments coming in. Slow wave morning. That's okay. You guys are getting worked up. You're getting built up because we have Steuben County Sheriff Jim Allard joining us here in just a little bit in the 7 o'clock hour during the Steuben Senior Services Fund section of our program. We are going to focus mainly, I think, this morning on the presidential campaign. We do have a couple New York State issues that we may get to, but I may save those to kind of pepper in with questions for the sheriff. So stay with us. We will be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Thanks again for joining us as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. As I mentioned, Sheriff Allard will be our guest in the 7 o'clock hour. Here is a comment from a viewer. Frank, my thoughts on Biden's spousal amnesty executive order. 1, 500,000 new Democrat voters. 2, confirmation that an illegal has been here for 10 years is proven. How? 3, that's a great question. 3, confirmation that they are married to a citizen. How? Going back to number 2, that's a good point because we don't even have confirmation on what their backgrounds are, hence the ISIS situation. So how are we going to prove 10 years? Anyway, continuing. 4, how does an illegal get legally married in the USA? Great question. 5, how do illegals pay taxes if they aren't citizens? 6, there will be a rush for illegals to marry, possibly to their siblings. 7, there will be a rush to the border by illegals to try and get in on this plan. Yeah. You will definitely see, to your point about a rush for illegals to get married, you will definitely see that starting to pop up, I'm sure, on the internet with the ads and the things like that. I'm nearly positive of it. What do they used to be called? Like when I can't remember, but you'd see the ads in the back of like a Rolling Stone or something. 8, obviously a short-term plan to get votes, which they know will be overturned by the Supreme Court. Thank you very much. Now, Rachel Morin's mom has spoken out after the tragic death, her daughter murdered, Rachel Morin's murdered, allegedly by an illegal migrant. Just to show you the mindset of the Biden administration, the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas referred to Rachel Morin as an individual instead of naming her in a Tuesday interview. Patty Morin spoke with Laura Ingraham saying it's a completely political statement because they're not even willing to acknowledge that she was a mother and a daughter. It totally depersonalizes her and makes her an object. That is a powerful message and a very true message. Rachel's death and Martinez Hernandez's arrest has sparked a new wave of outrage about migrants pouring over the southern border. On Tuesday, Mayorkas appeared on CNN and was asked about Rachel's murder and his response to critics blaming the administration's policies for violent crimes committed by migrants. First and foremost, of course, our heart breaks for the children, the loved ones, and the friends of the individual who was murdered, the woman, the mother. So do you think it's a thing that it depersonalizes her, or he doesn't know her name? Remember when when there was there's been a couple times where they've almost went out of their way not to say the name, or Biden mispronouncing the name in the State of the Union, the most amazing State of the Union any president has ever had. He came through when he needed to the most. You can write these headlines. That's exactly what's going to happen with the debate. He came through when it mattered the most. But anyway, that was a real side tangent. So the individual, Morin's family attorney, Randolph Rice, said they just seem to be disconnected completely from what is happening at the southern border and how it is affecting Americans. They are hemorrhaging at the southern border, and they're arguing about what kind of Band-Aid to put on them instead of putting on a tourniquet and stopping this flow so we don't have another Rachel Morin. Individual. What a disrespectful term. I have a feeling he probably doesn't know the name. I really do. I think at this point there's been so many instances of this criminality, this murder, unfortunately the rapes, unfortunately for everything, that I think at some point they no longer, I mean, Rachel Morin's mom said they never called. They've never spoken out, reached out, the Biden administration, to her. So Miranda Devine puts it this way, and you know Miranda Devine does a great job at the New York Post. She said, you knew the minute the words came out of Joe Biden's mouth that his mass amnesty announcement for illegal aliens was pure politics. Quote, folks, I'm not interested in playing politics with the border or with immigration, he said. I'm interested in fixing it. As usual, from this president, that's the opposite of the truth. Yes, if Biden says he's not playing politics, that's exactly what he's doing. We've talked about this in the past. There are no core values for Biden. It's all, at the end of the day, about a vote. Hence his weakening on his stance on Israel. We can go example after example on this. All he has done from day one is play politics with immigration. Ever since he walked into the Oval Office and rescinded Donald Trump's border protection measures with the stroke of a pen. 94 executive actions in the first 100 days. Remember that. He killed Trump's border wall and remain in Mexico policy, stopped deportations, and started secretly flying illegal aliens all over the country on charter flights in the middle of the night. The Post reported at length on Biden's secret flights into Westchester and the whited out charter buses awaiting at the airport to sprinkle illegal aliens around the tri-state area night after night. Democrats tried to blame Texas Governor Greg Abbott for the influx of illegals breaking the New York City budget, but it was their own president who did it. Now polls show that voters' anger about unchecked illegal immigration is killing Biden's re-election prospects, and only after he has successfully installed upwards of 8 million illegal aliens, he's trying to paper over his betrayal of the American people. But instead of reinstating those successful Trump policies to belatedly, quote-unquote, fix the border, he offered up a half-baked faux crackdown a few weeks ago and then promptly sweetened the deal with this DACA 2.0 policy to attract even more of the third world to illegally cross the border and become a net burden on taxpayers. He's now giving green cards and a 3-year path to citizenship to at least 500,000 illegals who happen to be married to U.S. citizens just in time to vote Democrat in 2028. It is a sign of how desperate Biden's campaign is that it would throw a match on his most incendiary political problem in order to appease Democrats' increasingly fractious base. The grand strategy of throwing indictments at Trump and branding him a convicted felon hasn't worked out. Interim Plan B is a schizophrenic border policy, and that's a good point. I think there is real concern. We had that piece for you yesterday, but there is real concern about within Democrat circles that the convicted felon label has not worked in the way they thought it would. Actually, making some people say this is enough is enough. We had Dennis Quaid, the actor, even saying that he didn't necessarily like Trump, but the weaponization of the judicial system was too much for him. Continuing, the mystery has always been why any president would want to destroy his country and his electoral appeal by throwing open the border to millions of unvetted people from around the world. If Republicans dared suggest it was to create a new captive voting bloc for the Democrat Party, they were accused of peddling racist conspiracy theories. The New York Times framed it this way in 2022. Experts in extremism describe it as a sanitized version of the Great Replacement, a once fringe racist conspiracy theory that claims that Western elites, sometimes manipulated by Jews, want to replace white Americans with immigrants to weaken the influence of white culture. The idea has been linked to the massacre at a Buffalo supermarket in May, the El Paso Walmart shooting in 2019, and the killings at a Pittsburgh synagogue in 2018. So that's the way the New York Times paints it if you have questions about this policy. In other words, shut up or we'll label you a domestic terrorist, and you know what happens next. Now Biden has proved the theory was true. Presumably, his minders think that DACA 2.0 will make an empathetic talking point in next week's presidential debate in which Biden can project empathy and pretend to have cracked down on the border while accusing cruel Trump of tearing families apart. And we've heard that language in the deportation. It's evil. It's dictatorial. It serves, and we always hear about Joe Biden's empathy. I would point to, or maybe, I don't know if you could get a chance to ask his granddaughter that he completely ignores and completely ignores, does not recognize. That's the word I was looking for. Does not recognize when we talk about empathy. But it serves the same purpose as a bogus Gaza pier did in the State of the Union. On the very same day that Biden announced a mass amnesty policy, an illegal alien from Ecuador was arrested for allegedly tying up and raping a little 13-year-old girl in broad daylight in Flushing, Queens. You've seen that, vigilante is not the right word, the citizens arrest that got that Ecuadorian illegal immigrant. But I'll continue because I know I'm running late. And I don't want to go through the whole story because she goes through numerous stories on this, even mentioning that Mayorkas refused to say Morin's name, which is a different case than the one I just mentioned, Morin's name, calling her an individual. He told CNN a criminal is responsible for the criminal act. The criminal sexual predator would never have been near Morin if it hadn't been for Mayorkas and his boss letting him into the country. Then there is the terrorist threat from the unvetted illegals who have flooded over the border the past 3 years. And we talked about the eight that had ties to ISIS. In another frightening case, an illegal migrant from Somalia with ties to terrorist group Al-Shabaab crossed the southern border in March of 2023 and roamed the country for almost a year before being arrested in Minnesota in January. Last year alone, Border Patrol agents reported that they had apprehended 172 terrorist suspects attempting to cross the border illegally. Those are just the ones who didn't sneak across. Those are not the gotaways. Those are the ones who are actually caught. Biden's border bloodbath is a catastrophe that has made us all poorer and less safe. That's Miranda Devine. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. The waves are starting to pour in this morning. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Okay, so I want to tie this in. We had said this yesterday on the program, and, well, we've been saying it for a long time, but it's fascinating to me, and I unfortunately, I think this works with some people, that the Biden administration, the Biden campaign tell you, no, everything is great. Public safety, never been better. Tough on border. Inflation, not an issue. And all these things we say, wait a minute, it seems like we're experiencing the truth and you're telling us something completely different from the truth. And I highlighted the story of the Secret Service agent who got held up. I don't know if the New York Post was watching the program yesterday, but they had a similar response in this morning's, or late yesterday, excuse me. Give full credit. Probably, I guess, somewhere after 8 a.m. They said, ouch. An on-the-job Secret Service agent got robbed at gunpoint while President Biden was inside at a Hollywood fundraiser. You can't ask for a more telling sign that crime's out of control in blue America. If an armed federal agent isn't safe on the streets of a wealthy suburban Orange County area, what chance does an ordinary citizen stand? Happily, the agent was uninjured and managed to fire at the fleeing robbers, but they made off with a bag and remain at large. Meanwhile, the president hobnobbed with the likes of George Clooney, Julia Roberts, Barbara Streisand, and Jimmy Kimmel, raising $30 million or so. The only thing that can make this tale worse for Biden is if they catch the perps, last seen fleeing in a 2004-2006 model silver Infiniti. Well, you don't need to know all that. And they turn out to be illegal migrants. That's the only way it could be worse. I know. Well, that's why I think the media the media doesn't present it that way. Some reported on the Secret Service agent getting held up, but not really saying, could this be a larger issue with public safety? Even though the administration continues to tell us that public safety is very reminiscent of Hochul, that it is fine. Everything is beautiful when it comes to public safety. You cannot be safer in America. Remember, they'll say, here are the stats. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of the program, there are some top Democrats behind the scenes that are fearful of raising concerns about the campaign strategy. And I had mentioned this to numerous people. I know I brought it up on the show, but I mentioned it to some people that I would say lean Biden or lean anti-Trump, however you want to put it. And my thought is, behind the scenes, there's Democrats out front that think they know the best. That say, oh, hey, keep hitting on January 6th. Keep hitting on January 6th. Or, hey, let's go convicted felon. Let's go after Trump. Let's weaponize the judicial system, go after him that way. Then I think there are Democrats on the inside that are going, wow, we are really blowing this. Doesn't a flimsy, at best, trial against Trump where he's charged with crimes that no one's charged with, as former Congressman Joe Semplinsky said last week, doesn't that really play into the martyr idea that Trump has been pushing since really he came down the escalator to announce he was running back in 2016? Doesn't this play into the fears of the American people that you're weaponizing the judicial system and a threat to democracy to go after your political opponent? So again, when you hear AOC and others saying they're going to put us in camps, they're going to arrest us, remember who is actually using the judicial system, weaponizing it to go after their political opponent, and who really wants to throw their political opponent in jail and has been trying, sometimes successful. Well, we'll see after January 11th if it's successful or not, or July 11th. I said July 11th. We will see if President Trump gets prison time, but either way, they get that label, convicted felon. So who is it that actually is going after their political opponents in that way, hoping for prison time? So I think there are Democrats behind the scenes that are saying, wow, we're not handling this properly. And I think that's what we're seeing from this piece by Victor Neva. Top Democrats have doubts about President Biden's re-election strategy, but won't speak up over fears they will be exiled from the commander-in-chief's inner circle. We're going to tell you a little bit more about that when we come back from this break. I see a few comments coming in, a few waves. Keep them coming. Don't forget, Sheriff Jim Allard will be our guest in the next hour. Stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. So back to what we were saying about some Democrats behind the scenes concerned about the campaign strategy coming from the Biden campaign. It's unclear to many of us watching from the outside whether the president and his core team realize how dire the situation is right now and whether they even have a plan to fix it, said a Democrat strategist. Now, keep this in mind. I know there was some criticism of this yesterday. A lot of times, these are going to be anonymous sources. I'm not a big fan of anonymous sources, but I think it does prove a larger point in this case. That is scary. Even for those close to the center, there is a hesitance to raise skepticism or doubt about the current path for fear of being viewed as disloyal. Noting that there's no talk at the moment that a change of course for the campaign is needed. At issue is a concern among senior Democrats that the Biden campaign is too focused on messaging related to January 6th and that idea of threat to democracy, when the real concerns of voters is immigration, the economy, inflation. That's what the voters want to hear, not a continuation of the January 6th messaging, the threat to democracy messaging. In Biden's most recent campaign remarks, think about this. This was at a fundraiser in Virginia. The president mentioned Trump 17 times. He mentioned freedom 8 times and democracy 4 times, whereas the economy was only mentioned twice and inflation was brought up 3 times. And they have that new ad out. It was $50 million television ad blitz you may have heard about, calling Trump, what the whole goal was in the first place, a convicted felon. Mike Donnellan, a longtime Biden aide and the campaign's chief strategist, believe polls aren't fully capturing the depth of voter concern about the threat to democracy he maintains that Trump poses. Quote, the focus will become overwhelming on democracy by November, he said in an interview with The New Yorker earlier this year. We know that's going to be the case. We also know that's why the media is saying this, that Trump is going to throw them in prison, and they're trying to say the deportation is evil, because what they're trying to do is say that you have a dictator here. But going back to Doug Burgum's point earlier in the program, who is a real threat to democracy? Who is acting dictatorial? You've got bypassing Congress on immigration. You've got ignoring the Supreme Court. You're weaponizing the judicial system to go after your political opponent. Oh, more waves coming in. But to what that anonymous source within the Democrat circles said, the American people aren't sitting back every night over the well, I was going to say over the dining room table, but probably in front of their TV trays. They're not saying, man, January 6th, huh? January 6th. They're saying, hey, why, I'm still hungry. Why couldn't we afford more dinner? They're worried about inflation. Nearly half of Americans are struggling because of the inflation spike, according to a new poll. Nearly half of Americans report that the recent spike in inflation is making it harder to make ends meet. A Monmouth University released a poll on this on Wednesday. 46% of Americans are currently struggling to remain where they are financially. I think that number would actually be higher in many instances. Excuse me, I think I'm going to sneeze. That figure is the highest point recorded by the pollster since President Joe Biden took office, and far higher than during his predecessor's term. In polls conducted between 2022 and 2023, this number ranged from 37 and 44%. In prior polls from 2017 to 2021, the sentiment was much lower at just 20% to 29%. Prices have risen about 20% since Biden took office, a huge increase across all kinds of goods and services. Even with a declining inflation rate, prices continue to be much higher than they were 4 years ago, Patrick Murray said. Isn't that interesting? That's a metric that has really mattered to many Americans over the past 2 years. Economic concerns may not be the top motivating factor for all voters, but it defines the contours of this year's election. So nearly half, highest number since Biden took office. Let's take our last break. Oh, one more thing. I know I'm moving quick because we're going to be talking with the sheriff in the next hour, and I've got a lot to get to. But tying in with that inflation issue, did you see that the United States debt is on pace to top $56 trillion over the next 10 years. And I like that this article says both Democrats and Republicans express concerns about the national debt. Can we hear from those Democrats? Because this is one of those examples of citation needed. But as it said, D.C. continues to spend. Look how much we spent on the Inflation Reduction Act. If Washington refuses to make the difficult decisions to rein in this red ink, then the bond market will eventually stop financing this debt at plausible interest rates. The era of free lunch economics is over, even if politicians will be the last one to learn about it. That's Brian Riedel at the New York Post. All right, let's take our last break of this hour. Boy, the first hour went fast. It always does go fast. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Wrapping up the first hour. We had mentioned this at the beginning of the hour. So we got the talking points from the Biden campaign, which are Trump's a threat to democracy, that the media is saying that he'll throw us in camps. And now they're telling you, and remember, if you recall, they were very effective in their censorship, specifically on social media, when it came in 2020 for the censorship of the Hunter Biden's laptop story. They've been very good at pressuring the media to censor certain issues or not talk about this as much as you should be talking about this. Well, coming from Fox News, the White House's new line that we mentioned earlier in the program, and we mentioned yesterday, cheap fakes, in response to Biden videos, is a part of a push for a social media censorship. Because what they want you to do is see a video. Well, they don't want you to see the video at all. But if you see a video of Biden acting kind of out of it or meandering or whatever the case may be, they want you to believe that it's not real, that someone took it out of context, that they slowed it down so it looks like it happened a lot longer. Like if you saw the video from the fundraiser where Obama escorts Biden off the stage after kind of just staring, that's just, he was taking in the audience and they took it out of context, or the awkwardness of the Juneteenth celebration where he just stood there. No, it's nothing but a cheap fake. As the general election nears, White House officials are dismissing as cheap fakes a series of viral videos circulating on social media that purport to show President Biden in declining mental acuity. But a conservative tech expert counters that the videos are generally troubling and that the Biden's shop's pushback is part of an election buzzword effort aimed at pressuring social media platforms to take action against it. Not everyone is buying the explanation. This is all part of an election slogan and buzzword. It's very clear what's going on here. They're trying to push a new term underneath the school of misinformation to try and pressure social media companies to take actions on videos of this nature. The term cheap fake is also being used just a week before Biden is scheduled to debate former President Trump. This kind of requires a ramp-up stage where you allege that something is a cheap fake or that's malicious in some way related to misinformation, and then you have essentially the evidence, the fact pattern, whatever, to go and push the social media companies with takedown requests because it's misinformation. What they're trying to do is gaslight the American people into believing that what they see on social media misrepresents his current state. And I know we had somebody say yesterday that, well, during the debate, he's not going to be able to hide it. If he starts to stare off, the American people see it. I think CNN is going to be so prepared to cut away from Biden. They're going to have their finger on that button to cut away so it goes to anything else. But if all of a sudden there's a rambling, or if he does that, I'm almost out of time, and stops talking because he lost his train of thought. But as I said, the White House and its media allies are in full defensive mode over these videos. This is Brian York from the Washington Examiner. Some may be convinced by the Normandy walkaway or how Barack Obama seemed to guide Biden off stage, but that Juneteenth concert where Biden stood perfectly motionless, his eyes seemingly fixed on some distant point, was not a misleading video created by Republicans. Something was going wrong with the president, and it makes no sense to pretend that it wasn't. And if there is some sort of problem with the president, it will happen again. The White House will not be able to say this did not happen whenever something does indeed happen. Well, they're going to try. That's why they came up with the term cheap fake. Is a censorship attempt, or to scare you from sharing it so your friends don't say, oh, that's not real. They're going to keep pushing it, and I don't think they're doing that to prepare for the debate. Because again, I think CNN will be ready to cut out at any moment if things get weird. Maybe one of the reasons why they have the commercial breaks. Oh, we're running late. We'll be right back. Kind of idea. All right, we've got some comments coming up in the next hour. Yes, hour number 1 is in the books. Coming up in the next hour, we will be talking with Sheriff Jim Allard, so don't miss that. You can get your questions in. It's not too late. We still have a lot to cover, though, on the national front. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back. Hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking, and if you missed hour number 1, shame on you. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, and as I mentioned, Sheriff Jim Allard will be our guest in just moments. We received a comment from a viewer wrapping up the last hour. As you were talking about the inflation issue, I got to thinking. I have to believe that those individuals who receive welfare benefits are not worried about how to feed their families. I realize there are families who truly need that assistance, but I believe the majority of those families who are receiving those handouts are working the system. Thank you for the comment. Continuing along here, speaking of inflation, we've talked about the young vote and how Biden's losing a lot of the young vote because of, I guess, his even weakening stance on Israel. But coming from the left, and this is Jeremy Edelson at The Hill, he says disapproval of Biden is widespread among young voters. American support for Israel's war against Hamas is one of the reasons. Beyond Biden's personal cognitive challenges, his administration policies are having indefensible consequences. And young people aren't liking this. Get this. Rent prices are still above pre-pandemic levels. Homelessness spiked from 2022 to 2023 to the highest level since 2006. And, quote, an imminent national security risk has been generated by the border crisis, with perhaps 10 million undocumented immigrants entering the country. Biden's legislative successes, like the Inflation Reduction Act, haven't tipped the scale as inflation remains at historic highs. The future looks dire for middle-class and low-income Americans. Many voters in the younger generations are thinking about these various crises, not just one issue. So that's coming from the left, and I thought that was interesting to piggyback. Now let's talk about the debate coming up in a week. Hard to believe. Now, the biggest departure from this debate, and I know we haven't went through all the rules on this, and I don't know if this is even an extensive list, but this is from CNN, who is hosting the debate. There will be no studio audience, as there has been in the past. No studio audience, which I do think, and I'd love to have you weigh in on what you think some of these things will do for Trump or for Biden. There will not be a studio audience. I personally believe that hurts Trump. The debate qualifications window closed at 12:01 or 12 o'clock with 1 second this morning. So that means it is just Biden and Trump meeting the constitutional ballot qualification and polling threshold set by the network, because RFK Jr. was, and rightfully so, complaining that he should be in the debate. And a lot of people waiting to the last minute thinking that he could sneak in. He did not, according to this report. And they give their reasoning why. They don't want to look like there was a kind of an effort to keep him out of the debate. So they give about a page here of why he didn't meet the requirements. But here are the debate rules. The debate will include 2 commercial breaks. I had someone comment yesterday or the day before after the program saying, I wonder what kind of commercials will be in there. Oh, absolutely. I would hope that there would not be campaign ads, but CNN's broke. CNN's hemorrhaging viewers. So they'll take the money where they can get it. And that's the most money they can get. So I will be curious as well to see what those commercial breaks. I know CNN is doing this because they're broke. I think killing the momentum with commercial breaks is a horrible idea. I know the candidates cannot go then talk to their campaign during those commercial breaks. They're not allowed to do that. But here's one of the reasons why I think there's a red flag with the commercial breaks. Again, I do believe the true reason is to make the money. But they can always go to the commercial break if something happens where it's not going well for Biden, maybe meandering, maybe doing that blank stare off that he's been doing lately. They can cut away from that quick and say, oh, sir, we're out of time. We have to take this commercial break. There's a lot of potential there for misuse. And don't think for a moment there isn't a producer in the back getting ready at any moment to switch that camera angle. Now, the debate will include the 2 commercials, according to the network, and campaign staff may not interact with their candidate during that time. Both candidates agreed to appear at a uniform podium, and their podium positions will be determined by a coin flip. Now, so I'm confused by this because there was talks that it was going to be sit down. Is this now then standing up the whole time? I think that's good. Microphones will be muted throughout the debate except for the candidate whose turn it is to speak. That is another example. What I think will be misused. It'll be your microphone's off, Mr. Trump. You spoke a second too long. Biden will give you all that time to respond. I don't like that. And I also think that the awkwardness of it is going to come off very unprofessional from CNN. Very unprofessional to watch. It may get very, very frustrating. Also, as many astute people have said that watch this show, if Trump speaks loud enough, isn't it going to bleed through Biden's mic? It could very well. I don't know what kind of technology they have. We'll continue. While no props or pre-written notes will be allowed on the stage, candidates will be given a pen, a pad of paper, and a bottle of water. All right, there you go. Again, they are so well rehearsed. Trump is. Let's put that aside. We know that. He does wonderfully in debates as a rule. Biden is so well rehearsed on this. They said, did I mark where that quote was? I hope I did. Okay, yeah. The preparations are expected. This is Biden's camp now. They've been practicing since, I think, last week. Well, since he got home from France, was it? The preparations are expected to progress over a series of days, evolving from informal discussions about topics, questions, and potential responses, and culminating in more formal 90-minute mock debates. The president will likely be fueled by his favorite drink of orange Gatorade. Did you know that? Isn't that this is the hard-hitting stuff that you get from CNN. So, just so you're aware, he's not allowed to have that orange Gatorade on the stage that night. It's only water. The White House is preserving the possibility that the president and his team could travel to Atlanta directly from Camp David, depending on how much practice remains. So it could be down to the wire. That's how much preparation they feel that President Biden needs for the debate. Aides have been compiling binders of questions, unlike Mitt Romney's binders of women, binders of questions with possible answers to each of them. Speaking of Romney, did you see that he was at that meeting with Trump? Still, and of course he comes back and he insults Trump again. But anyway, and the only reason I mentioned the binder of women thing, because it's nice to highlight every once in a while how terrible the media was to Romney, and look how wishy-washy Romney was. So it goes to show you any Republican is going to get that treatment from the media. They're going to have a wide range of topics for the president to peruse, I should say. 4 years ago, Biden is said to have offered detailed feedback on every anticipated topic, sometimes rejecting certain suggestions altogether. At other points, he pushed aides to home in deeper on one subject matter or frame a response in a different way. So now you get an idea. They could be flying in, and this is coming from CNN, at the last minute if they feel he needs that much practice at Camp David. Trump, meanwhile, has deployed the help of some of his top contenders for vice president, as well as senators, policy experts, and outside allies to help brief him ahead of next week's debate. In recent weeks, Trump has participated in roughly a dozen private meetings dubbed as informal policy discussions by his campaign. The subjects of the meeting have ranged from sharpening his message on the economy, the border and crime, to his views on abortion, the wars in the Middle East and Ukraine, and how to best frame his May 30th conviction of business fraud. I know, too, that they hopefully will be studying up on how to respond to January 6th, because that will be hit on a lot. Threat to democracy will be hit on a lot. Abortion will be hit on a lot, as I mentioned there. I don't know. I know they put out an ad about him being a convicted felon. I'm not sure how much that comes up in the debate. I'm sure it will, but they know that opens the door for conversations on Hunter. And according to the reports, Biden could get angry over those discussions, because they said that it was tough for him to watch. Heartbreaking. But yes, Mitt Romney does say, I know that's a weird segue, says he's still anti-Trump after meeting with him. It's a matter of personal character, he said. I didn't go there. This was at that Capitol Hill meeting last week with senators. Romney was supposed to be somewhere else, but I guess his flight got canceled, so he ended up attending anyway. I didn't go there to support former President Trump. I went there to listen to what he was planning on doing if he became president. With President Trump, it's a matter of personal character. I draw a line and say when someone has been actually found to have been sexually assaulting, what a weird way of wording that, that's something I just won't cross over, and that person I would want to have as president of the United States. So that's Mitt Romney. Now keep in mind, Mitt Romney is also the Mitt Romney that happened to ask for Trump's endorsement when he was running for president. Then, of course, Romney did not win president. Then, when Trump won the nomination, he came out, meaning Romney, and essentially gave a speech saying vote for Hillary Clinton. Then, when Trump did what Romney couldn't, and then you start to see the sour grapes, when he started saying, I want to work for this man. I want to be Secretary of State, because remember, Romney does everything that's politically expedient. So he wants to be Secretary of State, goes in, kind of begs for it, that awkward photo that we all know and love of them having dinner. Then Trump says, no, I'm not giving it to you. And now Romney's back on the hate Trump mantra. We've got a couple other things on this. Keep those comments, keep those waves coming in. We have Sheriff Jim Allard in just a few moments. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Stay with us. Broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. You know, every once in a while, you really have to cut through all the talking heads and all the, the garbage the media spews on a regular basis. And you really need to get down to the nitty gritty. You need that intellectual to cut through everything for you so that you can understand what's really going on. And sometimes, they may talk over your head and be brilliant. So I thought, why not go to, I think, everybody's favorite scholar, favorite legal mind, and that, of course, is Jane Fonda. Let's see what she has to say when it comes to the presidential election, just so we can better understand what we are facing. I guess the best way that I can describe what will happen if the orange man is elected, as we know because we read papers recently, he invited all the CEOs of the big oil companies to meet with him at Mar-a-Lago, and he basically said, if you give me $1 billion, I will cut all the climate regulations since you don't like clean air, clean water. All these things really protect the American people. That's why I really want to elect Joe Biden, because we're running out of time. I have grandchildren. I won't be around to see the worst of it, but we have to confront the climate crisis, and we have to do it fast. Well, there you go, folks. You're welcome. Anybody that uses the orange man, which is so cliche and boring, I think discredits themselves right off the jump. I also like going back to the narcissist point that we were making earlier about the media. I know Jane Fonda isn't in the media, but I want to elect Joe Biden. Now, we should elect, or I want to get Joe Biden. I want to elect. She wants to be the only person that has the say in who to elect. Hey, there's the sheriff coming in on Marcus Street as we broadcast live from the Hesselson's studio. Because coming up in just a moment, the Steuben Senior Services Fund section of our program. So make sure to stay tuned. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I am your host, Frank Acom. I'll turn down the music there. This is the Steuben Senior Services Fund section of our program, because joining us in the Hesselson studio is Sheriff Jim Allard. Good morning.
Good morning. It's a beautiful day in Steuben County.
It always is, isn't it? Are you kidding me? It's 100 degrees out there. Anyway, so we've got to start with, I think, the obligatory question that we ask at the beginning of our interviews.
Sure.
How are things going with the county?
Under the new county chair, much better.
Good.
The relationship is much better. We still haven't concluded the court issues yet. Should be done next month.
Oh, really?
Yeah, July 12th is our final hearing. We have a hearing coming up on the 28th for more evidence to be submitted, and we should be done the 12th. Hopefully have a ruling sometime in August.
Oh, okay. I was going to say that'd be weird if Trump gets his sentencing on the 11th and we find out what happens on the 12th. That's going to be a busy week.
Yeah, we won't know for sure what the ruling is probably till mid-August, and then hopefully we don't have to go through another appeal afterwards, but who knows?
The thing that when you talk to people about this, even if they haven't followed it that much, it's just the time and money that has been spent on this.
It's by the time it's done, it's going to be well over $100,000 in taxpayer dollars that will have been spent on this, in the hours and hours and hours of depositions and submissions and all of that nonsense.
Yeah.
And it's just nonsense.
Well, and that's a question I know I've asked you before, but what does this do for the morale at the sheriff's office? Is it better now because of the change in leadership?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it is, and there's been a solidifying, I guess you would say, of the agency in defense of itself.
Yeah.
And the only really negative thing I hear is that employees feel like they're being treated poorly by the county because of this.
Okay.
That it's a way to get back at me by treating the team poorly, and I don't have an opinion on that one way or the other.
But it's doubly wrong if that's happening. But it's got to feel good morale-wise when they talk to the people. Because I know you and I have talked about this on the show before. But when you were out getting petitions signed like that, just an overwhelming show of support.
Yeah. That's it's reaffirming. It was funny. Yesterday we had one of our lieutenants left us to be the jail superintendent for Tompkins County.
Okay.
They had hunted her and brought her up there and doubled her pay. And very, very proud of her, very happy for her.
Sure, of course.
She'll do a fantastic job for them. But in the meantime, we have to refill that lieutenant's position.
Yeah.
So we do like we always do. We have stakeholders from outside come in and do the interviews with members of our administrative team. And they forwarded a person to me for the final interview with me. And while I was chatting with him yesterday, he says, I've been here since 2005. Wow. You're my fourth sheriff. And he said, you're the one that turned the corner for me to make this a career rather than just a job. And the way in which we do things now as a total team concept.
Yeah.
He goes, that made all the difference for me, made me want to be a supervisor, made me want to apply for this job. And he already had the job, so he wasn't he wasn't just kissing my butt to get it. But it's good validation to hear, as you talked about, but also it tells me that our program's working.
Yeah.
The fact that other counties want our supervisors to run their jail. And
it's a weird compliment.
It is. It is.
Double-edged
but when
sword.
you look at it, it tells me that all of the training that we're doing and all of the investment we're doing in our employees is paying off.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. Now, have you found, because I know no matter who I talk to, not just in Steuben County, but in Chemung, there is the need. We've talked about corrections officer. Is that a common occurrence, the headhunting now?
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
It goes on, not just in the jail, but also on the road. People are, that's why, unfortunately, we have to keep up in pay.
Sure.
Or fortunately for our folks.
Yeah, right.
We have to keep up in pay or we just can't hold on to folks.
Right, and it makes sense. Is there still the need that we've talked about? I mean, I know it's only been a month or two since we talked, but I mean, the need is always still there.
It's not. We started to gain some ground, I think, because we've really been advertising and doing everything we can to get folks in, and it's getting better. But we still need a lot of people. If you're interested in a career in corrections, come on down to Steuben County.
So many of my interviews turn into job fairs. Now, this is kind of a weird question, but everybody is talking. I mentioned how hot it is. Everybody's talking about the heat. So I guess we'll be cliche and do it too. How does that affect you in the sheriff's office?
Oh, yeah. So it doesn't matter how hot outside it gets.
Yeah.
We have to maintain a certain atmosphere in the jail.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And so we changed out our chillers last year and went to newer, more efficient ones. And this is the real first big test of them.
Oh, yeah? How's it going?
They're keeping up.
All right.
But, wow, another 5 degrees, I don't know if they would. But it's working so far. I feel, having been doing this job for so long, I feel horrible for the guys on the road because they're out there with the vest on. And, we used to make jokes about the vest funk.
Oh, I'm sure.
Go like this and get a smell of yourself and go, oh, my goodness. And those guys are out there in this heat working, it just like, and I don't want to make it sound like we don't appreciate all the construction workers and folks that are out there doing physical manual labor, because we do and we empathize with them. But those poor folks that are out, you leave a controlled environment and go out and get hit in the face with that
it's nuts,
heat.
isn't it?
Yeah, it knocks you on your heels.
Yeah. Do you see, I know in the city they always claim there's like an uptick in crime when there's hotter weather. Does that seem to be the case?
Yes.
Okay.
Especially in domestics.
Oh, okay.
Folks that don't have AC in the house and are short-tempered already.
Yeah.
It just makes it worse.
Oh, that's horrible. So kind of tying into that, because I saw the newsletter. So with this heat, how's the jail garden?
Growing like mad.
Like weeds, really?
It's doing so. I swear it jumped a foot over the past week.
Oh,
it's doing really well.
Now, what the jail garden go for? Is it used in the jail?
Yes.
Oh, that's neat.
So 50% of the produce we grow goes in to feed the population in the jail.
Oh, wow.
And we work, the folks that we have that provide the meals are very excited about it and love doing that.
Oh, yeah.
Then we take the other 50% and it goes to the food pantry.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So
there's such
the
a
inmates
need.
that are working there are learning how to feed themselves for when they get out, but then also giving back to the community, which I love.
Man, fresh tomato sandwiches and air conditioning.
Oh,
This
yeah.
is starting not to sound too bad.
And free TV.
But that's great. You're doing a food pantry. This was a while ago now, but I visited the Painted Post food pantry, and Assemblyman Phil Palmisano joined me. And talking to them, and there's so many people doing such amazing work. There's such a shortage. So what a great idea.
There is. And again, we started doing this years ago just because, I want folks that are in to realize that they are giving back to the community, and maybe that helps spur or continue that when they leave.
Yeah. And it's always good to grow a garden.
It is. And
it's a rewarding process.
Well, yeah, and there's a tremendous number of folks that we have in the jail that have no clue how to.
Sure.
So we get to give them that educational program so that when they leave, they are food sufficient.
Right.
They know how to do a garden when they go.
Is it a pretty large garden?
Yeah.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, it's big.
Well, it makes sense. You're not just donating a couple tomatoes.
Well, we're doing over 1,000 pounds of produce every year.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's impressive. How many people are working on it?
So typically there's 3 inmates that are working.
Okay.
We have one correction officer who's supervised it every year. It's his baby.
Yeah.
And so he makes sure that
I was going to say he was
done
lucky,
well.
but this week I don't know how lucky he is supervising it out there.
We've had rain almost every night too.
Oh, that is
heat,
true.
So
Yeah.
things are growing.
Well, on that note, let's take our first break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. We are being joined by Sheriff Jim Allard. All right, we got a lot to cover. And by the way, we're getting a lot of waves, a lot of people saying hi. You are one of the, you're one of the fan favorites. You and Joe Sempolinski and Phil Palmisano. Here's a question from a viewer: which food pantry?
It's the Corning one down on East Corning Road.
Yeah. Good. There you go. There's your answer. See, getting him right to the viewer right off the bat. Okay. Oh, we haven't talked since then, and I have to recommend this to anybody if they've never been. But the annual Law Enforcement Memorial Service. How moving is that? How good was the young girl that sang?
Oh my gosh, she was phenomenal.
How do you get courage like that?
Well, yeah, she's standing up in front of that crowd.
Yeah.
And she was on the money. She was so good. Mm-hmm. I was very proud of her. Young lady from Hammond Sports School District.
Yeah.
She did so well. But yeah, the next year will be our 10th.
Is that right?
Yeah, our 10th annual Law Enforcement Memorial Service, where we honor those that have fallen in defense of their communities, not just in our county, but in the 6 adjacent counties.
Right.
We're one of the few counties in New York that has 6 contiguous counties. And so we honor all those folks, and we've been doing it. Well, next year will be 10 years. And it's just a very moving ceremony.
It really is.
And every year I do it, people come up and say, thank you, this is necessary. Excuse me, this is necessary to remember those and to remember what it is our police officers do every day, not just here in Steuben County, but in those other counties across the state. Let's not lose sight of the important stuff.
And at a time when we see politicians in the past defund the police or attack the police, and you see the media attacking the police, it was so refreshing to see young people there.
Yes.
To witness this and really, like you said, what it's all about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously we have tremendous support from our area legions and VFWs, and that makes it special too.
It's just like you said, it's just moving from beginning to end. Now, I ask you this in the past because I wonder if you're nervous when you know that the Albany's in session.
Well, especially near the end of the session.
So
that's when the crazy comes out.
Yeah, I saw an editorial this morning that said the legislature needs more time in session to complete its work. They want to extend it.
Right.
I want less time, personally. But anything that you saw towards the end of the session that's kind of troubling or good?
There was some things to do with corrections that are going to make it more difficult and less safe. We just got our so one of the attorneys for the Sheriff's Association every year takes all the end of session bills and breaks them down for us because, as you know, the changes in law enforcement over the last 5-6 years have been bigger than any before.
Yeah.
So if you don't keep up as an administrator, you're going to misstep. And so they break it down for us, and I just started going through that yesterday. I haven't completed going through it yet to see what made it across the line and what didn't. And there was a lot of corrections-based legislation that was being proposed, which again, our jails are the least safe for our inmates that they've ever been because there's no consequences for bad behavior any longer. So that scares me because I worry about the folks we have in the jail not being able to be protected the way they should be.
And then you see Governor Hochul with the closing of prisons and basically doing, as you have been on this program since we first went on TV, talking about the need of corrections officers, and then you see the governor basically discouraging people to get in the profession.
Right.
I mean, so it's got to be, I'm sure any time you see the sessions and you got to be a little nervous because I go on Empire Report and it seems like every day before the session ends, could this come in? And everything looks terrifying.
Yes.
It's never
this
to help
has made
you.
it through 2 committees.
Yeah.
And there hasn't been a whole lot of help. Although I gotta say, the governor did come through on the law enforcement technology grant.
Okay.
Everybody that applied got what they applied for. That's the grant where we receive $665,000 in equipment here for Steuben County alone. I know the city of Corning, I think, received $180,000 worth of equipment, and on and on. But that was one thing where I as much as it may hurt, I have to give the governor credit.
See, we were equal opportunity.
We are. I have to give the governor credit because she promised she would come through with that, and she did.
And now I'm going to be the jaded one.
Yeah.
And say, is that because she wants to look as if she's doing more for public safety?
Well, that's for you to figure out, not me.
I will say, I think she realizes how public safety, let's face it, we talked about it a million times. People are concerned about public safety.
They are.
So,
and when you see us losing 10% of our population per census cycle, you're not going to bring young people back if they don't feel safe.
Right. So I think she's not the kind of political animal that Cuomo was, but she still recognizes Lee Zeldin was nipping at her heels. So she's thinking about her job as well.
Right. And a lot of Lee Zeldin's message was public safety.
Yeah. And he did a great job of it. I saw for a minute, just as a side note, they said he was going to be on the short list for VP, but I never heard anything more about that. That would have been kind of interesting, right?
I think there's a large
short list.
Group of short listers,
But now, okay, we were nice to Hochul. Now let me change it because I'm going to go the other way. I had an article yesterday, the day before, when Joe Biden was giving his fundraiser, $30 million fundraiser. While he was inside, his Secret Service agent was robbed at gunpoint. So the armed Secret Service agent was robbed at gunpoint. And a few days before, the president had an ad and was talking about how great public safety was. And it was so reminiscent of Hochul.
Right.
And I'm not bringing up national issues here, but it was interesting to me. It was one of those things like we've seen in New York State for so long. Never mind what you're seeing and feeling and experiencing. Believe these numbers we're going to give you. Believe what we're saying.
Yeah. And we still get that from the Division of Criminal Justice Services.
Yeah.
We don't have past 2019.
Yeah.
No numbers.
Yeah.
And it's because,
yeah,
we all know what the numbers are.
Yeah.
And I think you're seeing that also. We can say public safety's better, but everybody knows it's not.
Yeah.
And everybody knows that it's less safe than it was. And if you look at just the number, and now you're going to make me take a step into bail reform, but the number of unnecessary victims that we have accrued because of bail reform denies that whole notion.
The one article, it was a newscast I saw, and their headline was public safety, great, whatever, Biden's doing a wonderful job. And at the end of the report, they said, these numbers are based on those who gave it to us voluntarily. I said, that's not a news story.
No, it's not.
That was unbelievable. I think the issue with public safety, specifically in New York, it's hard to tell us it's safe. It's like when they tell us inflation is everything's fine with the economy, and then we go to the grocery store and we're broke.
Sure.
We lost our whole paycheck. It's the same thing with public safety. Unfortunately, because of bail reform, everybody knows somebody that has been affected by that.
Well, and what I've seen recently, too, over the past year, is the attitude that I can say what I want to whomever I want in whatever manner I want, and there's nothing you can do about it, and it's my right.
Yeah.
And when you have folks acting that way, it always leads to violence.
Yes.
It always does. And we're seeing so many more incredibly violent acts across the board. And that's what's troubling to me is people are angry and they're frustrated. And they're acting in a way that we didn't used to act.
Right.
And it leads to incredible violence. And that's why you see, I think that's why you see more shootings. That's why you see more acts of violence, more stabbings. I mean, the five Cornell professors that were in China that got stabbed.
Yeah.
Holy moly! It's worldwide.
It is worldwide, but I also think that's why when you look at the college campuses and you look at what's happening in the city with the anti-Semitic, anti-Israel quote-unquote protests, and you go, where is this anger and hatred coming from?
It's extreme.
But I think the media and politicians have divided us for so long. You can't be told somebody is the most evil person in the world for 4 years and not start to really hate that person. Right? I mean, it's almost if they know what
you're
they're doing.
Being programmed.
Yeah. All right, we're getting away from national here for a moment. So stay with us. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and you are watching the Stu Benz Senior Services Fund section of Frankly Speaking. And our guest, Sheriff Allard. Here we go. There we go. Got you up on camera. I've almost got this camera stuff down. It's so much easier on radio, wasn't it? Okay, this is a question. We received this from a viewer earlier on. I'm going to reword it. But I know we talked about it last time, and there's something in the budget. What is happening with, they're known as sticker stores or these illegal marijuana stores?
So they actually passed in the budget this year, giving counties and cities the ability to pass a local law to enforce those as almost as an arm of the Office of Cannabis Management. There's some reporting requirements that go along with it and inspection requirements that go along with it, but they're giving you the opportunity, the counties or the cities, to list who their enforcement agency is as part of a local law and go in and shut these down, make arrests for any criminal activity they see within it, and to be able to padlock them if it's at a significant level, and then there's a $10,000 a day fine if they open back up.
Wow.
So the Sheriff's Association gave us a template. New York City's already doing it. As soon as it was passed, they went into gear. And they've made tremendous seizures and arrests already in New York City. So the Sheriff's Association gave us a template that we could forward to the counties, which I've done. I forwarded to the county, and I said we would be more than happy to be the enforcement agency on this.
You've been asking to do that before they even
This is a big deal to our constituents. This is a big deal to community safety and to quality of life. Anybody that's near one of these stores knows. And I'm still waiting to hear back what the county's going to do with it, if anything. I don't know.
Oh boy, I hope they do. I mean, that's they need to listen to like you said, the residents on this one. Because anybody that's been around one, it's not just the constant odor, it's not just the constant kind of the what's the word I want to use, shadiness around it. There's so many, like you said, it is a public safety issue at the end.
It is, and it's a cash business. So
but we're not getting it. It's
tremendous amounts of cash in and out. And the whole purpose of having marijuana dispensaries or cannabis dispensaries is that they're inspected, in that the product they're selling is inspected also, and that's not the case in any of these sticker stores. So whether you're pro cannabis, anti cannabis, doesn't matter. The fact is, just like when you go into a liquor store, you know that everything that is in there has been approved by the state. That's the way the dispensaries are. These liquor stores or these sticker stores would be similar to me setting up a shop and selling moonshine.
Yeah, exactly. A bootlegger or like an old-fashioned speakeasy. And I would say to people that maybe laugh it off as being prude, when I saw some of the wrappers on the street that look like kids' candy.
They do.
I mean, that's got to be a major
they look
run.
Just like kids' candy.
Yeah. Has that seen a lot of problems in our area with?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, jeez. So there you go. I assumed it was a major issue. Now, I saw in Watkins Glen, they just had a crackdown on one. We were talking with the mayor, DiNardo, and she was saying, to your point, she said that she's pro-legalization of cannabis on the show, but we've got to, maybe even just for the tax purposes, we got to get these people shut down.
Right. Look at how much we've already spent in the Office of Cannabis Management for the enforcement arm with no tax revenue to support it.
Yeah, I see they're hemorrhaging people. They just got, 2 more people got, asked to leave, I would say. I don't know, fired. So we got to take our last break, then we're going to wrap things up. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. And we are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. This is the Stu Benz Senior Services section of our program. Okay, I want to bring this up because you and I have talked about it in the past, and this is a really special event that's happening tomorrow. Tell us about the Memorial Trailer.
So this has been an almost 4-year labor of love. In 2019, we had 3 crashes in our county that claimed the lives of young people, and each of them were due to impaired or intoxicated or distracted drivers. And at that time, we, as the sheriff's office, what can we do to stop this, deflect, to minimize the effect on society? Can we can we do anything to honor the memory of those folks that we've lost, and at the same time educate our young people so that we're not going through this again. Again, it was 6 lives in 1 year.
Right.
And so we got with the families of the victims, and we put together, and again, this is Under Sheriff McNellis. This is his baby.
Yeah.
He got the initial funding to buy a trailer from a grant from State Farm. He got Progressive to donate a vehicle from one of the horrific crashes to us. Once they'd taken possession of it, he went out and cajoled and moved folks, and the Sheriff's Foundation was a huge support of it. So what we have is a multi-sensory trailer with, and I just saw the video yesterday.
It's got to be.
Oh, it's heartbreaking. If you walk away, if you're dry-eyed when you get done watching this, there's something wrong with you. But it takes you one of the vehicles from the crash that was, you can't even tell it's a vehicle, is in the trailer. The trailer opens up with graphics on folks that have been lost and statistics due to that show us that most young people die in car crashes due to either intoxication or distracted driving. And then it focuses on the lives of those folks that we lost and tells their story. And it does it with testimonials of the parents, of folks, community members. And it ends, it's called Emily's Challenge. Our dispatcher, Kim Clark, at the sheriff's office, her daughter was one of those that we lost.
Oh my gosh.
And she does a testimonial and about Emily in distracted driving. She distracted her driver while she was intoxicated as a passenger.
Oh my God.
And that's what caused her death. And Kim speaks at area schools about this. But the goal is to be able to take this out to every school in the county. And we've already got other counties saying, can we borrow this?
It's not even unveiled yet.
And it's a 17-minute video that as you walk around, there's screens all the way around the trailer that come out in speakers, and you look in and you can see the video and you can hear it, you can see the car, you can experience the loss from a 1-second decision to get in a car. And it's our hopes that this makes an impact on our seniors and juniors, our young drivers, but also it honors the memory of those 6 people that are no longer here that should be. And if it saves one life,
it's all worth it.
It is. But I'm super proud of the work that everybody did. And again, Under Sheriff McNellis was the driving force behind this. This is his baby. He gets embarrassed when I talk about it, but he did such an awesome job getting this done. And we had so many people pitch in to make it happen that it's just an amazing community effort.
And you mentioned you're going to take it to schools, which is a brilliant idea. Will you be taking it elsewhere?
Yeah, we'll take it to the county fair. We'll take it other places where we have presentations. And again, any county that wants to borrow it, as long as we don't have it already booked, they're more than welcome to use it.
And the unveiling is tomorrow, so that's, like you said, a labor of love for
tomorrow
4 years. Wow, so go out and see it for yourself. It's tough to be in large groups like that because you know you're going to probably end up, like you said, not have a dry eye.
And for me, watching it takes me right back.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because I was at all those scenes. And it takes me right back to with Kim being in the hospital when she got the news that her daughter wasn't going to survive, and being on scene, in Pulteney and in Avoca with the families that lost a loved one, or just being on that scene and helping to investigate and collect evidence. It for anybody that's been to something like that, it takes you right back.
I'm sure. And it's got to be so difficult for the families. But when you think about the service that the families are doing, participating in this, that it's I don't know how to, the silver lining on something so tragic, I guess. I don't even know how to word it.
Well, and again, we're trying to take these horrible tragedies and make it into something positive that honors the memories of those folks. And I think we've done it. I think we've successfully done it. We'll see. We'll wait for feedback tomorrow, but I believe in WATM, George down to
George is a great guy.
ETM,
Yep.
put the entire video loop together for us
In
free of
17
charge.
minutes, you said? Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot. I mean,
Yeah,
that's a
and-
heartbreaking 17 minutes.
And you could tell it was important to him to get it right.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Just before we go, I have a couple quick questions because we're almost out of time. And I want to put kind of a major national story to the forefront, but bring it at a local level. If I were to contact you and try to get, let's say, my pistol permit, and I lied on that form, what would happen?
You would be arrested for filing a false written statement and falsifying business records, both
Sure.
felonies,
Yeah.
and you would be prosecuted.
Yeah. So, I mean, just to tie it in, because I think the political season makes for some crazy statements. And to suggest that Hunter Biden, I mean, people, for such an administration that's so strong on gun control and preaches gun control, to suggest that this wasn't necessary to me is kind of an irony there.
Yeah, we've actually done those arrests and
Yeah.
prosecutions in the past
No
with
kidding.
pistol permit investigations.
Yeah.
We warn people the one thing that's going to jam you up is lying on the form.
Yeah. So, yeah. And again, how awkward is that, though? The first speech you give after your son is convicted of this is an anti-gun speech talking about families' responsibilities.
I guess it kind of speaks to the veracity of the speaker.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Enough on that. So I know this is kind of a generic question because I think it's going well. How's the campaign?
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Smooth sailing?
Smooth sailing, yeah. I say this all the time, but I'm the luckiest guy in Steuben County. I have tremendous support. The public has come out. You were at my fundraiser not too long ago, and you saw the number of people that were there. And I just feel incredibly blessed to have the support of so many people in Steuben County and our employees and I feel very, very fortunate. I really do. Not everybody gets to experience it the way that I do, and even with the nonsense with the county, that's a sideshow compared to the important work we get to do, and the important work we get to do with the everyday citizens of Steuben County, and we get to impact lives every day.
Well, and like you say,
who else gets to say that?
With the memorial trailer. Think of how many, that's lives, we talked about bail reform and the victims that didn't need to be victims.
Yep.
This is doing something about this, saying these are victims that don't have to be victims. Learn from these people's lessons. You know? It's got to be so rewarding at the end of the day.
It is, and that's the important stuff.
Yeah.
It is.
And speaking of, this is no way you would know about this. So yesterday I was talking with Billy Spalding. Yeah, and we're having
Our
a good
friend.
time. He's helping us out at the Salvation Army to try to do a fundraiser. And I'm in his office, and it was driving me crazy. I said, out of the corner of my eye, I said, he's got an autographed movie poster there, and it's support our local sheriff. And I said, there's no way he's got Walter Brennan's autograph.
No.
Like, I'm trying to think of who he would have got this autograph from. So finally, at the end of the meeting, I said, who like, was it some B character? And then it hit me as my eyes hung, and I said, he's got an autographed support your local sheriff poster autographed by Jim Allard. And he said he's going to put up on eBay if anybody's interested.
He's out.
I couldn't believe that. That made me laugh so hard. But no, it's good to hear the campaign's going well. And, we talked about it with former Congressman Joe Sempolinski the other week. Just the fact that you enjoy taking out petitions so much because you get to learn so much. And you're in a unique position where you want to know. Most politicians should want to know, but you are in a different position where you want to hear what's really going on the ground.
I do, and I'm goofy. I like hearing what people have to say, the pro and the con.
Yeah.
I want to hear. That's my feedback. That's my annual evaluation.
Right. Exactly.
How am I doing? And I love hearing that, especially when it's positive. But I like hearing the negative too, because then I know what I need to change.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, just like we were talking about earlier with the sticker stores and all that, people can tell you this is a concern, and now you're aware of sticker stores. But a lot of times when you're doing petitions, people tell you about a concern you weren't even necessarily aware.
Correct. It wasn't even on your horizon.
Yeah. So I think, and this is just a PSA to get people involved in the politics if they want to.
Yes.
The petition process, it's grueling in a way, but boy, it ends up being such a learning experience.
Yeah, it's a month of every night going out.
But weren't we complaining we wanted it in June?
Yeah.
Could you imagine? No one would have been running for office this year. Yeah. Well, thanks for spending so much time with us this morning. Good luck at the unveiling tomorrow. It's going to be moving and it's going to be difficult.
I really think so. I think it's going to be something special.
Yep. Well, we'll have to have you on again real soon.
Sounds good.
All right. That does it for
Frank.
us today. We'll be back tomorrow morning starting at 6 a.m. with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, we will see you bright and early. Look forward to it already.